Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics on Season 3, Episode 2. We're going to speak with Bronson David Hill today, and we're going to talk about investing. Well, investing versus real estate versus Wall Street. And there are three main things that we're going to talk about on this episode. And the three things are how to use inflation to your advantage, how to pay zero taxes legally, the unfair advantages of multifamily investing. We'll get into these details, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Stay tuned with Bronson David Hill. Take care. Bronson, how are you? Thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. I love talking about, getting back to basics in all areas of life, particularly in the financial arena and how to help people in that arena. So,
Yeah, Bronson, thank you again for coming on the show and supporting me in this small podcast that I have here. But before we talk about the three things that I talked about in the introduction, what does back to basic mean to you?
well, I think back to basics, it's just, how do you get back to really the things that are most important? A lot of times, especially in life, the longer I live, the older I get, the more it just seems life gets really complicated. I realize I don't have any time and I'm just doing things that I don't necessarily like doing. I think a lot of people can relate that maybe they're working a job they don't always like, or they are doing activities and they just find themselves in the midst of just being busy. And I think
Mm.
getting back to basics is just really, it comes back to what do you value? What do you want? What's really important? And when you live from a place of values and you live from a place of passion where you do things, you feel like you come alive, or you feel like at least they're from a place of, you value your family, or you value going on vacation, or you value being able to give financially to other people. I mean, those are things that are all very important to me. And so when I live from that place, I just feel like I come alive. And so to me, coming back to basics are just, what really is important. If nothing else gets done, if these things get done, I feel really happy and fulfilled in my life. So to me, that's what getting back to basics means.
Yeah, Bronson. Thank you again for answering that question, and thank you again for being here. You know, let me ask you this. Very first question is what does inflation mean? Can you just explain that first?
Yeah, so everybody I think is familiar with kind of what's happening right now in at least in the U.S., where everything's costing more. At the pump, at least where I live in California, gas even for the cheap stuff is over 6.50 a gallon, and everything's costing more. I mean, when that happens, everything, your money just goes less far, and this really has happened for a couple reasons. It can happen for different reasons. One is they printed a whole bunch of money. There was a 40.9% increase in the currency supply, meaning physical currency or money in bank accounts
Mm.
between February of 2020 and February 2022. So they almost, 40, that's just a ridiculous amount of money in a short period of time. And because of COVID, there's a lot less productivity, a lot less goods and services are available. So if you think of it just from a math equation, on one side, you've got all this, way more currency than you had before. And on this other side, you've got actually less goods and services available. That is a recipe for inflation, right? Because you have less productivity and you have more currency that's out there. So a lot of people are feeling the pain. They're feeling like, it's not their friend. It's something that is really challenging. There are some people that can use inflation to their advantage, but it involves kind of being aware and understanding what inflation really is, and how to kind of get on the other side of the equation.
Yeah. Thank you again for explaining that because people need to understand what inflation is because I guess there might be other definitions that people they talk about inflation. So I thought I should ask this question. Now,
Right.
what are the advantages and disadvantages? Obviously, the disadvantages it goes higher, but then how do we catch up? I mean, what do we need to do to, I guess, play ahead of the game, or should we be behind the game? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So inflation, I think, in general, the more they create currency, to me, I'm really of a thought that I don't think, lots of money printing and giving money to people, I don't think it really helps. I think, in the long run, it really actually hurts the very people it's trying to help. What I mean by that is if you're somebody who's poor or middle class, when everything gets more expensive, it's more and more painful. Everything is just, it costs more. The only way to really take advantage of it is there's two ways. One is to own assets. So if you can own, a house or houses or investment property or real assets, even some people would say precious metals as a way to kind of hedge against inflation. And by owning things, what happens is no matter how much currency is printed, there's still an intrinsic value in the house. There's an intrinsic value in maybe a business that someone owns, and so prices will generally just go up based on how much new currency there is out there. So that's kind of one way you get on the other side. The second way is if you can combine that. And I'm not giving anybody any specific advice, but if it can be combined with using debt. So, for example, if I buy a house, or let's say I bought a house a year ago and got a 3% mortgage rate on it, well, I'm paying, for 30 years, I'm paying 3%. If inflation is 8%, or maybe it's actually more like 15% when you count in energy, or you count in, food costs and other things like that, which they don't really count appropriately in the inflation numbers, the official numbers. And so you're getting just this way you can take advantage. You know that an asset like a house is going to be worth way more in 30 years just because of the new money creation. And yet you're paying a very fixed low rate for a long period of time. So fixed long-term debt is usually a really good idea if you're buying an asset. Now, if you're buying a boat, or you're buying a car or something that appreciates, of course, lately cars have actually appreciated. But in general, if you're buying assets that depreciate, that's not good. But if you're buying things that appreciate and you're able to do it with cheap debt that's fixed, that could be really, really wise.
Yeah. So, Bronson, thank you again. So, let me give you a scenario. A person is buying a house, let's say today, and the prices are high, right? Now, aren't you going to be losing money later on, because eventually it's going to go down and dip, right? So, is I think this might be the wrong time to buy. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean,
Yeah, well, it's really, it's really interesting. When it comes to the monetary supply, a lot of people don't realize that there's a difference between money and currency. What I mean by that is money is something that can be traded intrinsically. It's just something that has value all the time. It's not really fudge. This traditionally has been precious metals, meaning you actually could take your $20 bill in 1930 and you could go exchange it for a $20 bill. So it was actually more like a claim check on the actual, the $20 bill was a claim check on the gold that it actually represented. Now there's really nothing tied to anything. Currency, they can create as much currency as they want to. So as they keep creating new currency, they're creating new currency and more debt to pay for the existing federal debt that's there. They're doing it in other handouts, and of course the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the silliest name ever for any sort of thing. And I don't want to get political, but in general, the more they create, it creates problems, because unless if I just hold cash and I wait, and I talk with my investors about this sometimes, where if inflation really is 15 to 18%, there's a website called shadowstats.com, and they've changed the way they calculate the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, the way they calculate inflation. They've changed it a couple times. They changed it in 1980. And they changed it again in 1990. But if you use the old metrics, where it just kind of took a basket of goods, there wasn't any substitution, they do all these things to manipulate the current inflation gauge, it would be about 15 to 18%. So if that's the case, if somebody holds cash for 2 years, they could lose about 35 to 40% of their purchasing power. So the question you really have to ask is real estate really going to drop by 35 to 40% over the next 2 years? I don't know that it is. I don't know if this is the right time to buy as far as single families. I mean, that's yet to be seen. I was just doing an evaluation on it. It showed if you look at basically from a 3% 30-year fixed rate on a house to now it's more like a 7 or 7.25%. The payment amount, including escrow, has gone up by 41% just in the last year. Right. So that it is getting to a place where prices probably have to come down. But you have these inflationary forces, they're printing a ton of money. And yet you have these deflationary forces, which are interest rates are getting high. And so prices have to come down. So, it's going to take some time. But what people don't realize is with houses, kind of to your point, it can take years for housing prices to come down or to rise up. Usually they go up faster than they come down. It took a
Bronson, sorry to interrupt you, but we're talking about buying a home to live in. How about buying a home for investment? Do you think that's also a good time or a bad time to invest in?
Personally, I don't do a lot of single family. We have mostly multifamily units. We've got about 250 million in multifamily assets. So, a lot of people like buying investment houses, but I would say in general, an investment house that you buy typically, at any time, you can get a good deal on it. You can flip, you can buy and hold, whatever. Typically, they don't cash flow that much. I had a small portfolio of 4 or 5 houses, and yet I wasn't really getting much cash flow. And
Mm,
so what I found really, that's really how I discovered multifamily investing, where you can invest either by, putting money in passively and just going into a deal by putting 50 or 100,000 into a deal. There are other groups that do what we do, or people can actually be on the side of raising money or finding deals themselves. I just think it's a much more efficient asset. As far as, an investment property, I think it's very hard these days, honestly, to find anything that actually cash flows, that's positive
mm,
cash flow. There are some that are out there, but when you actually look at what expenses should be, it's either a break even or a very slight negative. It's in California, my payment might be for a house that I live in. Let's say I rented it, it might cost me $7,000 a month for the mortgage, but the rent's only $3,500 a month. So it's actually a negative. You actually pay for the opportunity to rent it out to someone else. So
mm,
other places in the country don't maybe look quite like that, but I think in general, single families are luring because that's what people think they'll do to become financially free. But very few
mm.
people that I know have become financially free through single family.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Bronson, for answering that question. So, what is the difference between the real estate and versus Wall Street? Because you mentioned that when you and I were exchanging notes, and you said the difference between the two products and inflation. So, what are your thoughts on that part?
Yeah, so I think in general, I used to be a registered investment advisor for a few years, so I feel like I kind of had a glimpse of the other side, kind of like the dark side, right, of what I see. And what the reason I'm so cynical of Wall Street is that Wall Street is really set up to charge fees and to really make money even when you're losing money. So again, if you have your portfolio of $1 million in stocks and bonds and you're looking to retire and it crashes by 50%, which we're taught that stocks and bonds are traditional and safe, but they've gone down multiple times over the years, 30 to 50% or more in a very short period of time. So if
Mm,
that's the case, they're really not as safe as they are. And yet, as an investment advisor, someone like myself or someone else, they could basically be taking their 1 to 2% fees, even when things go down. So there's really no incentive tied together. They actually did a study of large fund managers, and they found that over 50% of them didn't have a single dollar invested in the funds that they were managing. So there's
mm,
just a total misalignment of interest, right? There's just simply getting fees. And then actually, Tony Robbins came out with a book stating that if somebody invests in a mutual fund, the stated fees will be like 1.2% or so. But actually, there's all these hidden fees that legally do not have to be disclosed, which is so shady. But the actual fees are somewhere around 3.2%.
mm,
So, and then if you have a money person, they take an additional 1 to 2% on top of that. So that's 4.2 to 5.2%. The average return of the stock market is typically only around 6 to 8% or so per year.
mm,
So they're taking most of your money. And that's what really makes me upset about Wall Street, is that it's taught to be the safe traditional thing, but
mm,
yet it really doesn't benefit a lot of people. So I really like getting assets into Main Street, people that are, operating, they're high quality operators, though they have, like when we do deals, in our deals, we put typically 5 to 10% of the total money raised. So if we're raising $20 million, we'll put $1 to $2 million of our own money into the deal to make
mm.
sure that our interests are aligned with the investors. And then we actually get a performance profit share based on how the deal performs. So again, you have alignment of interest, which you don't have in Wall Street.
Mm. Bronson, thank you again for that. But let me ask you this. I mean, you mentioned this on one of the notes, and you said how to pay zero taxes legally. Now, there's no such thing as there. So explain that to me. What you mean by that? Because it seems like no matter what we do, okay, we try to squeeze away the tax, but then at the end of the year we have to pay taxes. So it's a yin and yang situation. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on that. So, it's been said that, two things you can't avoid are death and taxes, but I would say the second one is optional. And what I mean by that is, I've the last 4 years have saved over $200,000 in taxes I would have paid. Right now, I'm paying about a 1% tax rate. And how I do it is through investing in real estate. Now, there's a couple ways. I'm not a tax, CPA or a tax. I'm not giving any specific tax advice. But for the individual, typically there's a great book. Any books by Tom Wheelwright? Wheelwright, he wrote a book called Tax-Free Wealth that talks about this. But basically what it is if somebody has their earnings, they're a high paid employee. I'm in California, that the tax rate is about 49.3% when you include federal and state at the highest level. So a lot of physicians that I used to work with, I worked in the medical field, are paying they're paying almost half their money in taxes. So that's just kind of basically where you are, whatever position you're in. If you're a high paid professional, you're going to pay the most in taxes. So what you can do is, after you get taxed, you can put the money over here on this other side, which is like your investment bucket. And you can get to where you're deferring taxes through real estate, through multifamily deals like what we do, other groups do. And basically through depreciation, we're able to bring forward a lot of depreciation and just continually defer a lot of taxes until those properties are sold 5 years later. And then you get more depreciation later. So you can kind of keep using that against other sorts of gains. Now, this is where the really magical part starts. There's something, if you search, or one of your listeners searches, it's called the IRS designation real estate professional. So if you search real estate professional IRS, you'll find all this information. And it basically says that if the majority of your time is spent doing real estate related activities, then I can use all of this depreciation, not only against my investment income over here, I could actually use it over here toward my ordinary income. So I know two medical professionals in California that sold a business, and they basically had about a $5 million gain. They were going to pay between $2 and $2.5 million in taxes between the two of them, but they found a way to only pay about $125,000 in taxes. And the way they did it is they had their spouses become real estate professionals, where they are real estate agents. You have to put in 751 hours a year or more, 51% of your time. And now they can invest in deals where they can use the depreciation against that ordinary income. So that's a very much a crash course on it. There are actually tax consultants that people hire, and for a few $1,000s, they can hire and help find all kinds of ways that people can reduce taxes. But I really think it's a way that a lot of people aren't even aware that you can pay a lot less in taxes.
Wow, that's a crash course itself. It seems like I might have to knock on your door and ask you questions, because it seems like it's very intriguing that we did not know about this thing, and that's something new that I learned. And what is the name of the book that you just mentioned again?
So there's Tom Wheelwright. Last name is Wright. Actually Wheelwright. So like a wheel and then right. So
Yep.
Right. So Wheelwright, Tom Wheelwright, called Tax-Free Wealth. And that's a great book. It just talks about how this is possible. Tom is a CPA, and he just talks about how people, have businesses, we obviously take all the deductions, but obviously on the real estate professional designation, it really is magical for someone that is a high earner, and maybe their spouse can work part-time or do something related to the business, or have some sort of real estate thing that they do on the side. And then they invest in deals, it takes, our normal deal projections are, 14, 15, 16%, but it takes those projections to be like 30+% or 40% because of the tax benefits themselves. So, but if something comes across as too good to be true, I think it's important to be able to research it and really learn about it. Now, most CPAs are not real estate CPAs, so they don't understand about this. It's very, I have a CPA I've used for over 20 years. I had to kind of educate her on how this actually works. Now, again, I'm not a consultant or a professional, whatever. I do help people with wealth, and I obviously used to be an investment advisor, so I know some things about this. I know some people that are consultants in this area, but it's something that I think anybody who's paying a lot in taxes should look into, because it's not a loophole. A lot of people defend, these are loopholes for the wealthy. No, these are actually incentives that the government creates so that they can provide things like short-term, housing for workforce housing, or they provide things in the energy space around oil and gas. Those are the two primary ways people get major tax breaks and be able to, reduce or pay zero tax.
Yeah, Bronson, thank you again. But very quickly, how obviously CPAs is a different person when it comes to taxes, but who do we contact for tax for real estate?
So if someone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to refer some people along. You want to try to find, this is where going to real estate investor meetups or going to events can help. My email is just bronson@bronsonequity.com. Somebody can just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to send them a couple names. There are also strategies. So there's people that can help you with your taxes, and they are, CPAs, and they will do taxes for you. And then there's what's called a tax strategist, and they're usually CPAs, but not always. But they'll come in and they'll say, hey, here, let's look at your whole situation and let's look and see what makes sense. And I'll give you another example. I have a friend, and he is in his 50s. He's a medical sales professional. He's a sales manager for a medical device company. His wife is a Fortune 1000 CEO, and he's been doing multifamily apartments in the Seattle area and the Phoenix area for quite a while. And they went to a tax strategist, and basically this tax strategist told them, hey, it actually would make more sense. You would make more money. You would keep more money if you quit your job and your wife just worked, because you could actually take advantage of this real estate professional
Mm,
designation, you could
mm.
use all this depreciation you've captured there that you just, if you don't use it, you just keep carrying it forward and forward and forward. But
Yeah.
again, by becoming a real estate professional, allowed him to use it. And then so he actually wanted to quit, but then his wife was able to see like, oh, this is exactly how it works. Wow, this actually could work. This makes sense. And so again, the government, they provide incentives, and
Mm,
well, why would they do that? Again, it has to do with, if some people don't provide housing for individuals, who's going to provide it, right? They want to make sure that's something that they're really supportive of providing,
mm.
low income or working class housing.
Yeah, thank you again, Bronson. I've learned a lot in this 20 minutes so far, and I've learned one thing, that there's always ways when you do find some way to do it. And thank you again for that small nuggets. I should say a big nugget. So thank you again for that.
Yeah,
You know,
well, go ahead. Sorry.
no, please go ahead, Bronson.
Well, I was just going to say, sometimes there are these things that we don't know about. I mean, I look at things that I've learned or books that I've read, and I read a lot. I've read, I've read or try to read about 60 books a year or more, and it's just like you can learn so much. There's so much out there that a lot of people will say, "I can't do this," and the answer, really, the better question is, how can I do this? Right? Is to say, well, how is it possible? How is someone else doing this? And just learning about these things, because the more you learn, the more it enables you to learn more, or earn more, excuse me. It allows you to save on taxes. It allows you to really make yourself more valuable to the marketplace as well.
Yeah, thank you, Bronson. Because the reason why I'm emphasizing on more taxes and trying to understand that how we can be kind of free from it, and try to understand it in a legal way, in a better way, and that this is one of the reasons why we have this show, is to teach people in a basic way, in a simple way. So thank you again for that. You
Sure.
know, Bronson, you also did mention about the unfair advantage of multifamily investing. Can you explain what that means, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so we talked about one of them. The idea that multifamily, it does offer more depreciation, in my experience, than any other type of real estate investing. And with this thing that's in the tax code right now, we use something called a cost segregation study, which allows us to bring forward all this depreciation to year one, so somebody can invest and they get all these passive tax losses or deferral, which is amazing. So that's one benefit. Another benefit is, in a time of high inflation, I could pull up a chart that shows basically rents and inflation go hand in hand.
Mm,
Rents lag a little bit, but in general, as inflation rises and goes up over a long period of time since the 60s, it's just gone in tandem. So we know that if inflation is high, rents are going to continue to go higher, right? It's going to continue to go hand in hand. So I love owning assets that pay me to hold them, right? So I'm buying something that actually will pay me to hold it. It's not just like I'm putting money somewhere and it actually is paying me to hold it. So it's cash flowing. So cash is coming from it. And it's an inflation hedge. So rents will rise. Another really magical part of this is I get to use debt. Like I was talking about before, I get to use debt to go buy an asset. So we only have to put 20 to 30% down, and we basically be able to own this great property that we're basically not even all the way. We're only a fifth or a third of the money in the deal. And then we don't need, if the value of the property goes up by 20 to 30%, we haven't increased our equity by 20 to 30%. We've actually doubled our money, right? Because we
mm.
only put 20 to 30% down. So when you're able to take advantage of debt and leverage and own an asset that is going to be more valuable over time, that cash flows and pays you to hold it, and has amazing tax benefits, I don't know if there's really any asset that's better than that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for that. And when we start investing on, let's say, different real estate in out of state, then aren't you like double taxing on versus where you're living versus where you're investing?
No, that's actually not true. I mean, we'll file both places. So if we do have a taxable bill, let's give an example. So we have a lot of property in Florida. Florida does not have any state income tax, which is a benefit. But even if we've had other states where you do have to file something in that particular state. But because in the beginning there's really not much cash flow to start with, and let's say 100K, this is an example of a deal we have currently, 100K invested, you get a 90K year one passive loss, right? So that means, what does that mean? It just means that you have it's showing all these losses, even though you haven't made or lost anything, right? Usually it takes 6 to 12 months before cash flow starts. Then when cash flow starts, maybe you made $10,000 the second year or something like that. You could use from the 90K, you could just take that and go over here and cover those gains that you have over here. So again, you're able to kind of cover the gains. So that does cover, again, I'm not a tax person, so every state is different, but in general, I haven't seen it to be a problem because, when you do have gains, you're able to cover some of those losses through the depreciation in the actual investment.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you again, Bronson, for answering that question. So before you leave, let me ask you three questions, and it's a rapid question.
Okay.
What does business mean to you from your aspect?
Business to me really means creating value in the marketplace. People get paid very well to solve problems. And so if I can find a way to solve problems that people find they're having issues, and maybe they don't even know they have an issue, maybe they don't even know there is something that is a solution to it. But if I can find a way to solve a problem, I'll get paid very well for that. Also, I will pay very well to others for solving a problem for me. And I can think of a number of things in my life. Like, man, if I can find somebody to solve that problem, I'll pay them very well to help me in my business or my personal life to do that. So I think it's just really, it's really the barter type of economy, or the way that we, figure out what's important and we use our resources. And the more people find value in something, the more they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you again. And two more questions. What does technology mean to you?
Technology. Well, technology, I mean, you can go back to the wheel, right? Or something that, um, something that just helps you helps you with your life. I think, now we live in air conditioned and heated houses. We really live in a pretty controlled, for most of us, a pretty controlled environment. I think I read somewhere that the deaths just due to the environment has gone down 98% in the last 100 years. I mean,
Mm,
just the or last 150 years, just from technology. So it really makes our life better. Obviously, we can transport, we can, we have conversations like this. We can do all these things where time and space and, limitations really are not an issue, as much of an issue anymore, which is phenomenal.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you again. And what does marketing mean to you?
Marketing is basically getting your message out and really trying to. I think I bring it back a little bit to business of trying to find a way to increase value in the marketplace. But if people, I think for people like in our deals or what we do, people have to know, like, and trust you before they want to invest 100K with you, right? They've got to get a sense of who you are. They've got to, oh, I kind of like that person. I like that guy, and then they have to feel like they can trust you with what you're doing. So with marketing, if people don't know who you are, and that's where most businesses fail, is that nobody knows who they are. Like, oh, they have something, or they don't know what they do, or they don't know anything about them. So the more you can tell your story, the more you can tell your message, and really try to find a way to
Mm,
express to people, hey, I can help you. I can help you in this way. I can help in all these things. So I think marketing is a noble thing. There are some people that don't go about marketing the right way, I think, but in general, I think marketing is for people that own a business is absolutely essential.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you again, Bronson. But, before you leave today, I just want to ask you, how was your journey on Back to Basics? And before you leave, do you have any last words and quick words to all my Back to Basic listeners?
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Gresh, you've been very gracious. I think you've probably thanked me at least 40 times. So I'm grateful for that. And that's been always nice to be with someone who's, respectful and appreciate that. And obviously I can tell from this community, you're just really trying to find a way to add value to people and help them grow. I work on helping people to reduce taxes, helping them to increase income. I actually did write a free report called How to Use Inflation to Your Advantage. That's a free download at bronsonequity.com. You can just go and download it, hit it'll just pop up and you can download that. But anyway, I can help any of your listeners. I'd love to help. And so I look forward to connecting, and thank you again for having me on today.
Yeah, Bronson, thank you again for all the support, and thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks, man.
So, guys, we spoke with Bronson today, and we talked about the basics of investing and Wall Street, really, and what is the advantages and disadvantages, and that's what we did today. Now, as usual, as always, there's a quote of the day, and hopefully Bronson will like this quote, and the quote is, give a 10% chance of 100 times payoff. You should take that bet every time. What does that mean? It actually means take chances, take a leap, and try to understand that. And yes, I understand when we start investing something, the first thing that comes in your mind is tax, tax, tax. And today we said that there's a different way to get some money back in your pocket. So think about that, and that's what we're trying to do here. As usual, as always, what do we always say? And Back to Basics: everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care. God bless. I will see you next time on Back to Basics. Take care. Hi, guys. Thank you again for tuning in to Back to Basics and listening to the excellent episode that we had today with our guest. You know, with your love and support, we do need you to at least rate our show, review our show, because it does make us stronger day by day, week by week, as I usually say on my episodes. And there are 3 things in this episode that it makes a hit for me, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. So guys, take care, God bless, and remember, everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care, God bless, and see you next time on Back to Basics.